as well start. First of all, thanks everyone for coming, whoever did today. I wish I had gold stars or whatnot. You certainly get some dedication points. Unfortunately, those don't amount to much in the grand scheme of things, but I appreciate it at least. I did have one idea of handing out like these Tim cards and stuff to everybody who's here as a deserving prize or something, but I unfortunately didn't bring them with. I'm not. Yeah, exactly. I could hand out like 4 of them to everybody or something for the people that are here, but unfortunately, I think I'll end up with a lot of other angry people if I do that. So I'm gonna wait until next week's class for when the midterm is, and I anticipate the seats will be a little fuller. I'm also trying, not that you guys care, but for those of you there, I'm trying to videotape this one too, because I anticipate that while you guys do get some dedication, other people may also deserve some bonus marks for less foolishness in showing. I'm kidding, but I just anticipate that some people, just like last time, I know that for people who are a little closer, it's possible to come in, and some people are trying to come from like Peter or Lindsay and for credit and who knows where, and that's probably not going to happen today. And so, anyway, I'm going to try to videotape this. Didn't let everybody know. I sort of both apologize for that and also think that it's probably the right idea anyway. I didn't post on it because A, this is being done very amateur hour on my own little tablet here. It may or may not work. And 2, by the time I kind of made the decision that I might do this, it was probably already too late for most of you to make any difference anyway. So this is going to be a bit of a hybrid lecture then. But I nonetheless thank you for coming. So today, so I also promised that I would talk about the midterm first. It's going to be, so midterm is next class. It's going to be very similar to the last one. It should be, it's going to be 50 questions again, or at least give or take plus or minus 2 or 3, depending on what I decide to either put in or take out. Sometimes I, take whatever, put in or take out a question or 2, but approximately 50 questions like last time. You'll have no problems with the amount of time. You'll be able to, have as much time as you need to finish it. Certainly enough time to finish it. From a difficulty perspective, I'd say it's probably going to be similar. I certainly am not going to try to make it any harder or anything like that. There's no intentionality in terms of making it more difficult. There's also not really any intentionality in trying to make it easier either. The average was maybe slightly lower than what, than I guess normal, than average, but not, it was 69, which is, pretty close. And so, maybe one question off of, where it should be type of thing. And so, give or take, approximately, it's going to be about the same in terms of difficulty. You can definitely anticipate that it's going to be approximately the same in terms of amount of lecture to textbook content. Book to texture. Lecture to textbook content. It will be more heavily lecture. It will be more heavily material that's in both textbook and lecture. If it's only in the textbook, it's going to be less likely to be on there, and certainly there will be some, but there will be less of that. So again, if time is a factor, obviously study everything, but if time is a factor, focus on what duplicates, and then what is in lecture only, and focus last on what's in textbook only. You have to do that. Like last time, it's going to be quite experimentally based. So know the experiments that are discussed in both the textbooks and the lectures. That doesn't mean, again, obviously I'm going to ask questions like, what's the difference between implicit and explicit memory, or like which of the following is an example of implicit rather than explicit memory systems, or something. Whatever else. But I'll have, cognitive psychology more than any other discipline in psychology is a great experiment. experimentally based. And so we rely very much on findings, specific findings from the studies. So my advice is like when you're studying the experiments, I mean, there's a lot of them, right? The textbook goes through experiments on every page type of thing. I will be handing out review sheets. Again, I will be giving out review sheets per chapter, so that'll help a little bit. But, I obviously can't tell you exactly, but I can just outline, do study this one, don't know this study. I mean, I want, but my advice would be to make sure that you understand why each study was done. Okay, because a lot of times I think students try to memorize the what the study was. If you know the why, you know the what. It's going to be pretty hard to know why a study was done without knowing what happened. So my advice is make sure that for whatever study that is being discussed, you can answer why it happened. And if you can do that, you're in good shape. Okay? Some of the questions I ask obviously pertain to the why, and then even for ones that are a little bit more fact-based, if you know the why, you'll be in good shape with the what. It isn't quite necessarily true in the opposite direction. You know what without necessarily knowing why. What else? Anything else? Just as a reminder, then you've all probably emailed the announcement out, so you should have all received it by now. But just to clarify, 3 lectures, 4 textbook chapters for this coming exam, right? Because there are 2 textbook chapters associated with today's class. What it actually is there's 3 textbook chapters associated with last lecture and this lecture. One of the techniques that will kind of span across both last lecture and this one. But there will be the three lectures since the last midterm, 4 chapters, which makes it just slightly less content than the last midterm. And then the final will just be 3 lectures and 3 chapters, which make it slightly easier to make perhaps, which is, I guess, good because it's worth a little bit more, so that might be helpful. Okay, any questions about midterm? I didn't answer one. If you do, then feel free. Okay, so today is going to be, we're going to start off as a continuation of last class because we didn't, somewhat purposefully, didn't finish the slides from the last lecture. I've just copied and pasted the slides that didn't get covered last time into this week's lecture. They're actually in last week's slide notes as well, so you'll have 2 copies of them now at the end of last week and beginning of this week. So we're essentially just going to start or continue where we left off last class, and which is largely talking about implicit and explicit memory systems, long-term memory systems. And we talked last class mainly from a psychological perspective, mainly from a process perspective, and learned various characteristics of how long-term memory works, what allows information to get encoded into long-term memory with a stronger memory trace, levels of processing, for instance, etc., semantic coding and whatnot. Where we left off was just where we were going to start talking about what's actually going on in the brain. So we're not going to get into it in any level of detail similar to brain behavior for those of you who are already tensing up, but it just doesn't make sense anymore, even in a cognition class, to talk about these systems without relating it back to the brain in some way. So for the first half hour or so, we're going to talk about the neural underpinnings of memory a little bit. Not just because it's important to relate it to specific brain regions, which we're actually going to do with fairly little detail in this case, but because with memory in particular, this is actually one area where our understanding of the neural underpinnings have actually informed and further informed what we know about how memory works. So we've learned about how memory works based on where in the brain it's going on, which is not necessarily as the same as with some other processes. So to start, I've got a video that I'm going to show, or at least trying to show. It's not encouraging. So we learned about Clive Wearing last class. who's the amnesic conductor who had viral encephalitis. This is a video on if I can find it now, which I should be able to, on HM, sort of. My link's not working, so give me a minute here. Shoot. There it is.
There's a very famous patient by the name of HM. Some of you may have heard of HM. HM had epilepsy, and so in the early 50s, he was going to have to go and get his brain resected because it was now life-threatening, his epilepsy, and so they pulled out. When they did the surgery, they were doing an experimental surgery. They had the unfortunate incident of taking out the hippocampus and some ancillary parts of this guy's brain. When HM wakes up, he has no ability to convert short-term memory into long-term memory. So he can meet you, and 2 hours later, meet you again, and meet you again forever. It's Groundhog Day for HM. There is no ability to do. He has anterograde amnesia. Can't go forward with it. But here's the extraordinary thing about HM that was discovered that led us to the path that it took years to consolidate a memory. They began asking him, they knew he didn't have any short-term memory in the forward direction. What about retrograde? What about going the other direction? What did he think to forget? And they were asking questions of things that happened a year ago. And you know what? What's extraordinary is he didn't know either. He didn't have hippocampus, but that was weird. The hippocampus converting short-term to long-term? Not. 2 years. Nope, couldn't remember anything. 3 years. No memory. 5 years. 7 years. 11 years. He finally got a memory trace back. And then after 11 years, he could remember a lot of different things about what was going on. And all of a sudden, it began to hit researchers. Oh my gosh, the hippocampus is not only involved in the conversion of short-term memory to long-term memory, it's also involved in systems consolidation. And it took 11 years to get it fully consolidated. The hippocampus was needed for 11 years with HM for certain types of memory. After the 11th year, forget it. It was somewhere else. The nomad had finally settled down. And it didn't involve the hippocampus. Now we know what goes on. When a memory is recruited for long-term storage, it will now go in, and the hippocampus will get a hold of it, and it will be an association between the surface of the brain cortex and the hippocampus, and they form a love relationship that lasts a decade, maybe more. Nomadic now, it's whatever it's doing something. And then, after the 10th year, maybe for HM, it's different years for different people. All of a sudden, for some reason, the hippocampus says, you know, I'm done with you. We're getting a divorce. I don't need this surface anymore. And it subtracts its information, subtracts the electrical relationship, but it's no longer needed because it's still in the cortex, and now this is your permanent drive. I told you there was no such thing as a hard drive in the brain, and there really isn't. It's kind of scattered all over the place. But it forms this electrical relationship. Years. If it takes years to consolidate a memory to its final form, it means stuff that you learned in the first grade will not be fully systems consolidated until you are a sophomore in high school.
I feel like I need to learn his style of talk. I should do like, love connection. I'll see how entertaining I can make class that way. Probably not, but he does, in his flamboyant way, make some nice points. And the first is that the hippocampus is clearly involved in memory processing, and we do understand that to be the case. But as he said in the last while, we've now recognized that it seems to do more than just store memories, and in fact, it doesn't really appear to store memories long term at all. We now understand that there is a connection between the hippocampus and the cortical regions of the brain, the frontal cortex. Sorry, I'm switching.